The laughter started before Elena Rowe even stepped fully onto the mat. She stood quietly near the entrance of Titan Grappling Academy, dressed in a plain, worn guy, her brown belt tied neatly around her waist. To the others, she looked like someone's out-of-shape aunt who had wandered into the wrong building. One student whispered, "Yoga's next door, lady." Another chuckled. "She's here for the free trial, right?" The instructor didn't bother hiding his smirk. "Put her with the big guys," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Let's see if she survives 5 minutes." Elena said nothing. She simply bowed and stepped forward. No one knew her name. No one knew why she was really there. And no one knew, even the black belt who mocked her had the slightest idea that in less than 14 seconds, their entire understanding of Jiu-Jitsu, strength, and respect was about to change forever. Stay with us to the end, because this isn't just about a sparring match. It's about legacy, about dignity, and the quiet power of a woman they never saw coming. Don't forget to subscribe. What happens next? You won't forget. Elena Rowe sat alone in her car, the engine off, her fingers wrapped around a thermos of tea gone cold. The front entrance of Titan Grappling Academy gleamed under the morning sun-sleek glass, bold black signage, and a giant poster of their head coach, Trent Maddox, mid-chokehold in an MMA cage. Everything about the building screamed aggression, dominance, and ego. She took a deep breath, staring at her reflection in the rearview mirror. No makeup. Faint crow's feet around her eyes. Her hair, once fiery red, was now a muted auburn tied into a low bun. She didn't look like the woman she had been 20 years ago, back when Jiu-Jitsu was her sanctuary, taught to her not in commercial dojos or on tournament mats, but on the tatami of her grandfather's modest home. Elena Rowe, the legend no one talked about anymore, one of the few Americans ever awarded a black belt directly from the Gracie family, a master who rejected trophies, sponsorships, and seminars. He believed in something puro Jiu-Jitsu as a way of living, not winning. And Elena, she had been his shadow since age 6, learned every grip, every counter, every subtle shift of pressure not from textbooks, but from the rhythm of her grandfather's breath. He never let her compete, never chased belts. And yet, on her 21st birthday, he tied a black belt around her waist with one quiet word: earned. But Harlan was gone, now taken by cancer 3 months ago. In his final days, he asked her for only one thing. Don't let the art die, Lena. Not under all this noise. Show them what it really is. And this was the start. She had chosen this academy deliberately. Titan Grappling had a reputation not just for turning out champions, but for humiliating newcomers, especially women. Stories of instructors mocking students, forcing them into injury-prone sparring, bragging online about how soft modern jiu-jitsu had become. Elena had heard enough. She wouldn't lecture, wouldn't argue on social media. She would step onto the mat, silent and unseen, just like her grandfather had taught her. She left her real black belt at home. Today, she wore a weathered brown belt. It was enough to get into the advanced class without raising suspicion, just enough to be underestimated. Inside, the gym buzzed with activity punching bags swinging, bodies slamming onto mats, loud grunts and shouted instructions. Elena walked past the front desk where a young receptionist looked her over with a glance that lingered just a second too long. "New?" he asked. "Just moved into town," she replied. "Brown belt. Here for the advanced class." He handed her a waiver without a word and pointed toward the locker rooms. In the women's changing area, Elena kept to herself. She changed quickly, tucking a folded photo of her grandfather into the pocket of her gi. She caught a few sideways glances. Own woman looked her up and down, then smirked. "Better hang on," the woman muttered to no one in particular. "Coach Maddox eats brown belts for breakfast." Elena didn't respond. She just knelt by her bag, adjusted her wooden bracelet, her grandfather's last gift, and whispered, "I'm not here to win. I'm here to remind them." As she stepped barefoot onto the training mat, the atmosphere shifted. A few students paused mid-warm-up. One elbowed another. Murmurs followed her like shadows. Trent Maddox, broad-shouldered, shaved head, a scar bisecting his left eyebrow, turned from where he was stretching. His gaze landed on her with the weight of amusement and mild irritation. He didn't recognize her. Perfect. She bowed toward the mat with quiet dignity. The clock on the wall ticked forward. The test had begun. Coach Trent Maddox clapped his hands sharply. Line up. By rank. The dozen students scrambled into formation, slapping hands and straightening their belts. Elena moved into place alongside the other brown beltsmen in their 20s and early 30s, all built like middleweights, with cauliflower ears and taped knuckles. She felt their glances like needles. One of them, a smirking guy with a patchy beard, leaned over just enough to whisper, "You sure you're in the right class, ma'am?" Elena didn't flinch, didn't answer. Across the room, Maddox paced in front of the line, his heavy footsteps thudding softly against the mats. "We're running guard, passing drills today. If you're slow, sloppy, or scared, you'll sit out. I don't train tourists." He stopped directly in front of Elena. "You? Brown belt?" "Yes, coach," Elena answered evenly. He scanned her from head to toe. "What's your lineage?" "Harlan Rowe," she said. That got a reaction. A flicker of recognition passed through Maddox's eyes, followed by a scoff. "Old school guy. Thought he dropped off the map years ago. You one of those self-defense hippies?" Elena's lips twitched but didn't form a smile. "Just here to train, sir." Maddox gave a crooked grin, loud enough for others to hear. "Let's see what kind of fairy tale jiu-jitsu you've brought us." He pointed toward the center of the mat. "Demo time. You and Dylan." Dylan stepped forward. "Big, fast, competitive." Elena nodded, bowed, and took her place. "Standard guard, passing flow. Start from seated. Go." Elena moved with precision, clean grips, tight base, no wasted movement. Dylan was strong, but impatient. She let him initiate, then swept him softly with a simple butterfly hook. Controlled. Clean. From the sidelines, Maddox barked. "Again. Go harder." They reset. This time, Dylan came in aggressive, trying to muscle his way through. Elena let him push, then reversed the pressure, redirecting his weight and turning him over with ease. Maddox stepped in, face tightening. "Number. That's not how we do it here." "Dylan. Stack her harder. Make her uncomfortable." Dylan complied. The next round, he came in with elbows high and weight fully committed, smashing down. Elena absorbed the pressure, but stayed composed, using frames and angles to stay safe. The roll ended with her regaining guard and controlling Dylan's sleeve. "She's stalling," someone muttered. Another chimed in. "Bet she's never competed." Maddox called the group in. "Listen up. There's a reason we push each other here. It's not daycare. You don't learn anything from playing nice. And if you can't handle pressure," he turned to Elena, "then you don't belong in this room." He gestured toward the bench. "You can sit out. Watch how real grapplers move." Elena tilted her head, eyes calm. "With respect, coach, I'd rather keep training." Maddox grinned. "Suit yourself." He turned to a clipboard by the wall. "New drill. King of the mat. 1 minute rolls. Winner stays in." The class came alive at the challenge. As partners rotated, Elena waited patiently for her turn. When it came, she faced a blue belt, first controlled him cleanly, submitted with a simple armbar. Then, a purple belt swept and passed without flair, just clinical efficiency. When she finally faced Keith, the cocky brown belt from earlier, he tried to bulldoze her. Within seconds, she took his back and transitioned to a collar choke. No muscle, just mechanics. The room quieted. Maddox called out, "One more." He stepped onto the mat, and for the first time, silence fell completely. Coach versus the new woman. Elena bowed. Maddox didn't return it. The clock ticked once, and the match began. Trent Maddox came in hard. No playful feints, no testing grips, just raw power. He grabbed for Elena's collar and immediately snapped her into a forceful takedown, something more suited to a cage fight than a training mat. Her shoulder hit first, but she rolled with the impact, absorbing it cleanly. Still, the message was clear. This wasn't a demo. This was domination. "You said you wanted to train," he muttered as he dropped into side control. "Don't cry when it hurts." Elena breathed slowly, her ribs compressed beneath his chest. His weight distribution was deliberate, just off balance enough to smother. He wasn't just sparring, he was trying to break her. From the edge of the mat, the students watched in a strange mix of amusement and unease. A few pulled their phones out discreetly. Dina, the muscular purple belt who had eyed Elena earlier, crossed her arms and frowned. "You okay?" someone whispered to her. "Coach is testing her," Dina said flatly. "Or humiliating her." Elena remained calm beneath Maddox's pressure. Her hands framed his shoulders, her hips shifted gently. She didn't panic. She waited. But Maddox didn't like waiting. He transitioned violently into north-south, digging his shoulder into her diaphragm. "Come on, brown belt," he taunted, loud enough for the class. "You've got 15 years, right? Show me something." Eleanor could have escaped, easily. But part of the test was restraint. Until now. Maddox yanked her arm into a kimura grip. Hard, not training speed tournament speed. The torque hit her shoulder instantly. Pain bloomed down her scapula. He leaned in further. "Tap," he barked. She didn't. Instead, she whispered, "You're off balance." "What?" Before he could process it, she twisted not to escape, but to reframe his leverage. For a second, he adjusted his weight to maintain control. And that second was all she needed. But then, she stopped. She didn't counter. She didn't roll. She froze. Because in that moment, she saw something else, not just Maddox's ego, not just his aggression. She saw her grandfather. She remembered the last time Elena Rowe had been on a mat, gray-haired, recovering from chemo, teaching a class of 3 in his backyard. One of the new students had gone too hard, mimicking MMA clips he'd seen online. Harlan had smiled through the pain. Never scolded, never retaliated. But that night, as Elena iced his wrist, he said one thing. Jiu-Jitsu, without respect, is just cruelty wearing a black belt. And now here she was, under the weight of a man who knew nothing of that respect. Another twist. Another pull on the kimura. Maddox growled. "Still want to keep going?" From the sideline, Denna stepped forward. "Coach, maybe ease up. That's not a training grip." Maddox shot her a glare. "You want to be next?" No one else spoke. Elena's heart pounded. Not from fear, but from choice. She had come here to observe, to document, to reveal what was broken. But there are sacred moments when the mission has to shift, when silence becomes complicity. And her grandfather hadn't raised her for that. She breathed out once, deeply. "I'm sorry, Grandpa," she thought. "This wasn't part of the plan, but he needs to learn." With calm precision, Elena planted her left foot on the mat, shifted her hips, and whispered under her breath, "Base broken." Maddox faltered, his center off for a half second, and Elena moved. The shift was subtle. To the untrained eye, it looked like a minor readjustment, Elena lifting her hips a little higher, turning her elbow just slightly inward. But to anyone who truly understood jiu-jitsu, it was the beginning of something deliberate, dangerous, elegant. Coach Trent Maddox didn't notice. He was too busy chasing control, too confident in his perceived dominance. And then, Elena moved. A sweep not aggressive, not flashy, just a perfect redirect of weight. Maddox overcommitted, and suddenly the ground wasn't where he expected it to be. In a flash, she was no longer under him. She was beside him, on top of him. Transition, hook, frame, shift. Maddox grunted, realizing too late that he'd given up his base. He tried to scramble, but Elena flowed faster than thought. In the span of a single breath, she had taken his back. The class fell silent. It was a different silence, now no longer amused or dismissive. It was charged, electric, the kind that precedes revelation. 1, Elena counted in her mind, gripping his lapel. He rolled to escape. 2, she shifted her weight, denying him space. He bridged. 3, she adjusted the angle, her right leg threading across his torso. Maddox growled in frustration and drove his weight forward. 4, now her hips were under his arm. She secured the wrist. The entire gym held its breath. 5, the beginning of the end. 6, her legs locked, triangle forming. 7, Maddox yanked, trying to pull away. 8, too late. 9, she caught his elbow and pivoted. 10, her hips lifted. He was trapped. 11, she paused. Let him feel it, the pressure, the inevitability. His face turned red, his body twitched. His pride screamed louder than his voice. "Don't you dare," he hissed through clenched teeth. "Tap," Elena said softly. Not as a command, but as an offering. Never. 12. She added an inch of elevation to the armbar. Not enough to break, just enough to hurt. 13. The class was frozen. Phones were down. No one laughed now. Everyone watched. And then, 14. The sound echoed through the mat. Slap, slap, slappers. Maddox tapped out, both palms hitting the mat 3 times in rapid succession. Elena immediately released the hold and rolled back, rising smoothly to her knees. She bowed, as tradition dictated, as respect required. Maddox lay still for a moment, his breathing loud in the stunned quiet. When he sat up, his face was a storm rage, confusion, disbelief, and underneath it all, something else. Recognition. Elena extended a hand to help him up. He stared at it, didn't take it. Instead, he stood on his own, adjusted his disheveled gi, and turned to the class. "She got lucky," he muttered, but no one responded. Elena remained kneeling, calm and composed. The silence fractured as whispers filled the room. That was black belt level. I've never seen Coach get caught like that. Who is she? Keith, the brown belt who had mocked her earlier, stepped forward. "Where'd you learn that transition?" Before Elena could answer, Dina beat her to it. Her voice was quiet, but firm. That wasn't just skill. That was control, precision. She could have snapped his arm and she didn't. Maddox's head turned sharply. Elena met his gaze, unflinching. He walked over slowly, his voice low. "Who the hell are you?" She stood up now. Not to challenge, just to answer. "Elena Rowe," she said. He blinked. "Rowe? As in Harlan Rowe?" His jaw tightened. "No," he whispered. "Yes." She pulled a folded photograph from the inside pocket of her gi and handed it to him. Maddox stared down. There it was, Harlan Rowe, barefoot on a wooden mat, holding a young girl's hand. Elena, at age 8. "That can't be." "I trained under him for 30 years, Elena said softly. "I wore this brown belt today because I wanted to see who you were when you thought I was no one." The class was completely still again, but this time, it wasn't dismissive. It was reverent. Maddox swallowed hard. "I started Jiu-Jitsu because of Harlan Rowe," he admitted quietly. "I saw a grainy VHS of him sparring once he made it look like poetry." Elena nodded. "It was. People like you turned it into a blunt instrument." He flinched. "I'm not here to shame you," she continued. "But you needed to remember what this is really about. And so did everyone watching." For the first time since stepping on the mat, Maddox's shoulders dropped. Not from fatigue, but from understanding. He didn't apologize. Not yet. But something in him changed. And the room felt it. The photograph made its slow journey through the line of students. Each pair of hands trembled slightly as they passed it along Elena, barely older than a toddler, in a crisp white gi beside Elena Rowe. The expression on his face wasn't fierce, wasn't proud, it was peaceful. Calm. The opposite of everything Titan Grappling Academy had become. No one spoke. They didn't have to. The revelation was settling like ash over a forest fire. Maddox remained frozen. His arms crossed now, but not out of defiance, more like a shield, hastily raised against something deeper than embarrassment. Shame. You planned this, he said, not accusing, just trying to understand. I had to, Elena replied quietly. If I walked in with my black belt and my real name, you would have smiled, bowed, and pretended to respect me. But nothing would have changed. She turned, addressing the room. So I came in as a nobody, like how every woman who walks into this gym is treated. There was movement at the back. Dina stepped forward. She's right, she said firmly. We all feel it. The double standard, the hazing, the looks. Her voice cracked. Then in your hands, and you use that moment to hurt them. You don't deserve the belt. His eyes met Elena's. I forgot that. For the first time, Elena saw something unexpected in him, not just regret, but recognition. She nodded slowly. It's not too late. They stood in the center of the mat, two black belts from different worlds, joined by the same name etched into history. Elena reached down and picked up her brown belt. She folded it neatly, then retrieved her real belt, the black one with the name H. Rowe, stitched beside her own, and tied it around her waist. Gasps fluttered around the room. No one said a word, but every eye watched as she pulled the knot tight. Not to prove something, to reclaim something. Maddox stepped back. No bravado, no false recovery. Just a man watching the temple he'd built begin to reshape itself. The next hour passed without anyone truly focusing. Maddox resumed the drills, but his voice had lost its sharp edge. It wasn't weakness, it was adjustment. He called out instructions, but no longer barked them. He corrected posture, but didn't belittle mistakes. His movements were still powerful, but his eyes had softened. And every few minutes, they drifted toward Elena. She didn't dominate the room. She didn't lecture or lead. She simply moved through each drill with quiet precision, partnering with the students who had once dismissed her. She rolled with Dina, offering subtle advice mid-transition. She sparred lightly with Keith, and when he tapped, she offered her hand not in triumph, but in mutual respect. The atmosphere had changed. It wasn't overt. No banners dropped from the ceiling. No apologies were shouted across the room. But there was a tension slowly releasing, like a tight muscle finally letting go. During the water break, a teenage girl in a white belt nervously approached Elena. That armbar, can you show me sometime? She asked, clutching her sleeve. Elena smiled. Of course, anytime. Behind her, Denner watched and smiled too. By the locker rooms, Maddox lingered in the hallway, pretending to check his phone. When Elena walked past, he spoke without looking up. Your grandfather, he began, then paused. He taught a seminar once in Seattle. I was just starting out. He said one sentence that I never forgot. Don't build your name on someone else's silence. Elena turned, gently. And yet, you did. He nodded once, a bitter truth swallowed. But you stopped me before I could do worse, he added. That counts for something. It does, she said. But it only matters if you build something better with it. They locked eyes. No more power struggle. Just two people standing on the edge of something new. I'll see you next week, Elena said, then walked away. Maddox watched her go. Not with resentment, but with something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. The logo on the front of the building had changed. Gone were the jagged letters of Titan Grappling Academy, replaced now by a simple emblem, two open hands forming a circle with three words beneath. Rowe Jiu-Jitsu Collective. Inside, The air felt different. Not softer, just cleaner. Focused. Balanced. Students of every shape, age, and background were drilling calmly. The loudest sound in the room wasn't shouting or grunts, it was the soft rhythm of breath, movement, and the occasional hum of respectful instruction. At the far end of the mat, Coach Maddox, still muscular, still intense, was kneeling beside a beginner in a white belt, gently correcting the angle of an underhook. "Feel that?" he asked. "Leverage, not strength. That's what keeps you safe." He stood and glanced up as the front door opened. Elena Rowe stepped inside, her black belt tied neatly, embroidered with both her name and her grandfather's. The entire room paused just for a second. Not out of awe, out of respect. "Morning, Professor," Denner called from across the mat, now wearing a brown belt of her own. Elena nodded warmly, placing her bag by the wall. She watched as a group of new students practiced shrimping down the mat, some clumsy, some nervous, but no one mocking, no one laughing. A teenage boy tripped. The older student beside him helped him up with a pat on the shoulder. "Progress." Maddox approached her. "No clipboard, no posturing. We've got 3 new women signed up this week," he said quietly. "And the teen class is full." Elena raised an eyebrow, teasing. "No yelling?" He grinned, sheepish. "I'm learning." She looked around at the academy, not just changed, but healing. "Good," she said, because Jiu-Jitsu wasn't about breaking people down. It was about helping them rise. As the seminar began, Elena stood at the front of the mat, her black belt resting against her hip like a quiet promise. Behind her, a wall once plastered with medals now bore something else, a framed photograph of Harlan Rowe. In it, he smiled beside a much younger Elenano spotlight. No trophies. Just 2 generations sharing the same quiet fire. She bowed deeply to the room. Then she spoke. "Real strength isn't loud. It doesn't humiliate. It doesn't flex in front of a camera. Real strength shows up when no one's watching. It protects instead of punishes. It teaches instead of tears down." She looked at the sea of students before Herman, women, children, all watching. All of us step onto the mat, carrying something invisible. Don't be the reason someone walks away. Be the reason they stay. A quiet hush followed. And then applause, not roaring, just sincere. Because they knew now. Sometimes the fiercest power doesn't strike. It endures.